Hey there, welcome to the channel. This is Caffeinicus, and today's World of Warships video will be a bit different as we'll be looking at the Operations game mode, specifically featuring Narai, which was the operation of the week. I like using operations as a method to research the modules on my stock ships, as I tend to save my free XP to buy premium or special ships directly. As a result, my research progresses slowly as I often play stock ships in co-op, but if you're at tier 6 or 7, you can also play in operations to unlock modules, which is what I'm doing for the Leberecht Maass here, as it gives you a lot more XP than co-op. I won't really go over the strengths and weaknesses of the Maass this time around, as I haven't had the chance to play it in the random queue, and I don't feel that my commentary would be valid until I've had at least a few games against other players. So we'll focus instead on how to maximize your XP by knowing what to expect in the Operations game mode. You'll notice that we started in the northwest corner of the map. We have 7 players and a bunch of AI controlled ships. The primary task of Narai is to escort those AI ships to the enemy base so they can unload assault troops. We also have several secondary tasks, all of which are listed in the top left corner of the screen. The more tasks your team completes, the more XP everyone gets at the end. In Narai, the first set of enemy ships that show up will appear at the D1, E2 grid. This consists of a destroyer, a cruiser, and a battleship, and as you saw, I was expecting these ships and had AP loaded to shoot at the cruiser. The 128mm AP on the Maass actually surprised me, as it can punch through broadside cruiser citadels at close ranges. We'll have to try this out in random as well, but I'm assuming that human players won't just sit broadside on without maneuvering, so it may not be as effective unless you get an ambush off. Once the team pushes forward, another enemy battleship will appear behind the island at F2. This battleship will push northward, so I go ahead and let loose with a salvo of torpedoes. There's also a fort at the D5 island and a cruiser and destroyer that will push in from behind E4. So once again, make sure you get your guns ready, AP loaded, and knock the socks off the cruiser before taking out the destroyer. In my case, I also smoked up, as sitting out in the open in front of an emerald in a destroyer is never a good idea. I tend not to shoot at forts in a destroyer, because my guns just aren't as effective against them, but if you're in a battleship or even a cruiser, a salvo or 2 tends to take them out rather quickly. My fish were on point for the battleship, so I focused down the destroyer before it can get close to our team. We'll also need to start thinking about which ships will split off from the pack to complete the various secondary tasks. In this case, we would want a cruiser to eventually head towards the D8 area to sink the enemy carrier pushing north along the tin line. Another cruiser should head south to the G3H3 area to take out the enemy transport ships escaping around the island at H4. I usually recommend having a full HP cruiser or one with a repair party to deal with the carrier, as depending on the position of your team, it may be escorted by a destroyer and/or a cruiser. As for the ship heading south to take out the enemy transports, there's typically only a destroyer and a fort to contend with, so as long as the designated ship isn't low on HP, it's usually an easy cleanup. I wouldn't recommend sending a destroyer there though, as I mentioned, destroyer guns just take too long to deal with the forts. A ship with torpedoes can also speed things up, since the transports are slow and unarmed, and you can always launch a set of torps at one ship while gunning down another. But I'm skipping ahead, that's for the next stage. Right now, we're dealing with 3 cruisers pushing to the center of the map from 3 different locations, and there's also a Missouri in the back, and so it's usually best to deal with the cruisers quickly and then focus down the battleship. Your own team's battleships will be critical here to finish off the cruisers before they do too much damage, but if you do end up taking a lot of fire, you can always retreat towards your AI-controlled transport, one of which generates a circular area which will slowly repair your ship. You can see the Missouri now coming through the gap at F8, and as you can imagine, a tier 9 battleship can definitely hurt your cruisers, so if you're playing one, do make sure you don't give it a broadside shot into you. You can use the island at D6 for cover, but be careful if you push too far north of this island, you'll end up pulling a destroyer out to support the enemy carrier later on. Our team has made quick work of those cruisers, and so now it's time for me to shine as a destroyer, so I head out to launch my torpedoes against the battleship. There is no team damage in this game mode, so you can be a bit more liberal in how you launch your torpedoes. However, I want to hit the Missouri before it gets behind the island at E6. Though if you are in a ship with shorter range torpedoes, say the Minsk for example, you can always hit south of E6 and ambush the Missouri there, similar to what our Scharnhorst is trying to do. But my torpedoes look good, and we knock out that battleship before it can do any further damage. At this point, you want your team to split off to deal with the enemy carrier and transports as I mentioned earlier. It looks like our Z-39 and Helena have gone south to deal with the transport, so that's okay. Ideally, our Hood should be staying with our two other battleships to hold the middle, but it's not a big deal as long as our Scharnhorst doesn't go down. And we also asked our Zara to head north to deal with the enemy carrier. I decided to head towards the middle to help against the enemy ships in the objective area, which is marked by an anchor icon which you can see in the middle of the G7 to H8 grid. For this, it'd be preferable if I were in a cruiser with good DPM, but this should still work out nonetheless, and I can always smoke up for cover if needed anyways. We see a Phoenix in the objective area this time, while there is a smokescreen heading north on the 10 line, which indicates that the destroyer went north with the carrier while the cruiser stayed in the central zone. So the Zara should have an easy time dealing with his secondary task. He can simply shoot the destroyer and torpedo the carrier once he gets around the northern edge of the island at D8. In the meanwhile, I've put up a smokescreen for the ships coming in behind me and turned on my Hydra to spot any incoming torpedoes. The Caracciolo and I have to deal with two cruisers and a destroyer in the objective area, while our Scharnhorst has gone back to the transport ships to repair, so we'll be light on ships here early on. Again, not a big deal as we should be able to manage for now. We've taken out one cruiser, and now the destroyer is coming under attack. Our Hydra will be able to spot the torpedoes and provide the battleship with as much early warning to maneuver as possible. And there we go, the destroyer is down. And I'm going to go ahead and take a few shots at the fort while I push up. But unfortunately my shots flub. I'm also looking around to see if the Zara needs any assistance, but he should be fine against the enemy destroyer. So now we'll have to start to deal with the other cruiser. And I probably should not push up here to be honest, but my smokescreen is expiring anyway. And as I push around the island, the Dallas immediately acquires me as a target, which is impressive, and it's actually sometimes better than some players who would continue to focus on the battleship in front of them instead of the destroyer. And AI controlled or not, a cruiser at close range will still wreak havoc on your destroyer. So I am switching my shell types around here, shooting at the cruiser who is ducking and weaving, and I'm just really hoping that he'll give me a good broadside shot that I can punish. We're also taking a lot of damage, but fortunately for us, our Hood, which has made its way into the main objective area after helping to deal with the enemy transport, takes out the threat and saves my bacon. At this point, we just need the enemy carrier taken out, and then we need to protect all our transports while they unload the assault troops. There are a couple of forts left that will go down soon, but additional enemy ships will also start spawning from the southeastern part of the map, and this will include 4 battleships along with several cruisers and destroyers, which need to be taken out so that they don't focus on our transports. You can also see the pitiful damage that I'm doing against the fort, which is why I don't recommend having destroyers focus on these as it just takes too long. My smokescreen is available once again, so I'm going to go ahead and activate it, as this will also give some cover to our transports coming into the objective area. In the meanwhile, I'll also launch my torpedoes against the New York and start firing at anything within range. The enemy ships and operations tends to behave in predictable patterns, so it makes dropping torpedoes or predicting angles a lot easier. Our Caracciolo looks like he'll take out the Bretagne pretty easily, so I'll focus on the remaining ships, the destroyer and cruiser first. And while the AP performance on the Maass is great, it looks like the HE DPM may be just a bit lackluster. We're firing multiple salvos at this destroyer, but not really doing as much damage as I would like. I'll have to try shooting AP at destroyers next time and see how that goes. We do take the Farragut down to low HP, and the Hood is going to help finish it off in just a second here. And the New York also eats our torpedoes and goes down, so we'll focus on the Omaha next. And again, since the Omaha is a thin-skinned cruiser, I switch to AP and start to chew it up. My smokescreen is about to expire though, so I do have to move forward once again. And the moment that I get out of the smokescreen, we're going to get detected and we are going to be focused by the cruiser. But he is pretty low HP now, and we take it out before sustaining too much more damage. It's now time to get some repairs going though, so I start to turn back towards the transports. The final batch of enemy ships has now spawned, including a destroyer that's less than 6 kilometers away from me, so I desperately need to pull away before it starts to focus fire on me. Our Caracciolo is right smack in the middle of the remaining enemy ships, so he's taking their attention, and that's really good play there, exactly what the battleship needed to do in this operation. Take the attention of the enemy ships so that they do not shoot at our transports. We fired a couple of salvos on the destroyer there, once my guns were finally on track, and it seems like they turned quite slowly as well, so that may be another issue to look into when I do a review on the Maass later on. But the destroyer gets taken out, and I launch my torpedoes at the enemy battleships and head to the repair transport. Our Scharnhorst is back in the fray now as well after getting repaired, so it's unlikely that we'll fail here, and I start firing at the cruisers to get a bit more damage done. There's the remnants of a nice little smokescreen left here, and I take full advantage of it to fire from stealth. And now I'm close enough to our repair transport, and you'll start seeing my HP bar slowly going back up. We do end up getting a couple of torpedo hits here as we shoot at the Queen Elizabeth, and we finally take her out as well. And the only enemy ship that's left is the Colorado, and that is going to go down pretty quickly to focus fire from our team to finish off the game. And once that happens, you can also see the in-game notification that the operation is completed as well. So, let's take a look at the post-game results. Our team successfully completed all the secondary tasks along with this primary objective, so we get 5 stars for this operation. We did just over 205,000 damage, and it's easy to rack up high damage games in operations, especially Narai. We got a set of achievements that's specific to operations as well: Natural Selection, Tactical Expertise, C-Star, and Assistant. And what really surprised me is the 13 citadels that we got from the Maass's 128mm guns. Definitely makes me think that it's worth shooting AP in this destroyer. Our base XP was 1446, so this is comparable to a decent game in randoms, and certainly more than you would see playing co-op. Not bad at all for a 12.5-minute game, which is why I do recommend grinding stock tier 6 and tier 7 ships in operations if you don't want to spend the free XP to research modules like I do. We also ended up with just shy of 200,000 credits profit, so no fear of lost credits here, unlike co-op games either. So let me know in the comments what you all think about using operations to unlock modules, or if you prefer to jump straight into randoms with your stock ships. Or do you spend all your free XP on modules and just not worry about buying premium ships or special ships? Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you did, please do me a favor and hit the like button below or subscribe to the channel. And please join me again next week for more World of Warships videos. Thank you for watching and take care.